Imagine this, you're on a mission to lose weight, armed with the latest diet plan and determination to succeed. You start off strong, but as the days turn into weeks, something feels off. You notice your energy levels plummeting, making it hard to get through your workouts or even keep up with daily tasks. The cravings kick in, sudden, intense urges for sugary snacks or quick carbs that seem to come out of nowhere. You try to ignore them, but they become impossible to resist. The scale won't budge, and despite your efforts, you're left feeling frustrated and defeated. As you look in the mirror, the reflection staring back at you is not just about the weight. It's a mixture of fatigue, irritability, and a sense of helplessness. What's happening beneath the surface? Often it's not just a lack of willpower or motivation, it's nutrient deficiencies that are holding you back. Key vitamins and minerals play a crucial role in regulating your metabolism, energy levels, and mood. And when your body lacks essential nutrients, it struggles to function optimally. And this can lead to metabolic slowdowns, hormonal imbalances, and those pesky cravings that throw you off course. You may find yourself feeling stuck in a cycle. You want to eat healthily, but your body is craving the nutrients it's missing. And this internal battle makes sustainable weight loss feel like an uphill fight. It's a cycle that can leave you feeling defeated and really doubting your abilities. But here's the truth. Acknowledging and addressing these nutrient deficiencies is the first step towards reclaiming your energy, stabilizing your mood, and breaking free from the frustrating weight loss plateau. By focusing on nourishing your body with the right nutrients, you can support your metabolic health and create a more sustainable path to lasting weight loss. So let's first talk a little bit about how your metabolism changes over time. It actually declines about 1 to 2% per decade after the age of 30. And that happens because we lose muscle mass, which is known as sarcopenia. And also it's accelerated by hormonal changes. And then at this time of life, it's also pretty typical to have a decline in activity levels and your general energy expenditure. And that will exacerbate the slowdown because when it comes to muscle, if we don't use it, we lose it. We have to be taking positive action to be trying to maintain or even build muscle to prevent that metabolic slowdown. And this change in metabolism has an impact on your nutritional needs. And what that means is that the approach that we take after the age of mid-30s into our 40s, 50s and beyond, we need to be thinking about things differently. Our approach needs to adapt and pivot to our body's changing needs. Now, one thing that does reduce is our caloric needs because of that lower energy expenditure, but also at the same time, our need for nutrients increases. And isn't that interesting? We need fewer calories, but we need more nutrients. And where so many women go wrong is that they start cutting their calories, and often when you cut your calories, you actually tend to opt for nutrient poor foods. It's the calorie rich foods that tend to be very nutrient dense as well. So your typical diets that focus on low fat or low calorie foods are actually very nutrient poor. And so that can really drive some of these nutrient deficiencies that we tend to see in this mid stage of life. So we really need to prioritize choosing quality over quantity when it comes to food choices. We want to be looking at how nutrient dense is that food. And when we start meeting our body's nutrient requirements, that actually goes towards helping to regulate your appetite, because whilst you are lacking in nutrients, your body is going to be making you hungry, even if you've met your caloric needs, because your body is going to be crying out for nutrients, whether that's macronutrients like protein, which we are very commonly lacking in from the many food diaries that I've looked at, or whether it is the micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals that we're lacking in. Whether we're lacking in either of those, our body's going to make us hungrier to ensure that we get those nutrients in one way or another. So opting for those nutrient-dense foods is absolutely key. Now, I mentioned protein before, and this really is one that is so often lacking, and there's a lot of noise out there and it can be quite confusing. But essentially, we need to make sure that we're getting a good dose of protein alongside our other macronutrients, fats and carbs. It's not about having only protein or cutting out any food group or taking anything to the extreme. It's really about having a balance, because these macronutrients work together. Your protein is very slowly digested. It has a very high TEF score, which means that we burn a lot of calories just digesting protein. And so we also want to have that alongside our carbohydrates so that we digest our carbs slower and have a steadier release of energy to prevent the blood sugar spikes that can come with carbohydrates when we're eating them on their own, what is often referred to as naked carbs, or when we're eating very refined carbs. So combining our macronutrients really helps us to digest them slower so that we have a steadier release of energy. And it's important for me to mention here that protein is absolutely critical when it comes to maintaining and repairing our muscle. If we are taking those steps to maintain our muscle through our workouts with strength training, then we need to be making sure that we are providing our body with lots of protein to ensure that we are able to do that repair in the first place. And on a similar theme, fats are absolutely essential too, because we need those fats to make our hormones. So when we're trying to support our metabolism by regulating our hormones, including healthy fats in the diet is absolutely key. Now, there are some essential nutrients that play a pivotal role in keeping your metabolism healthy and thriving. But first of all, what do I mean by essential nutrients? Well, when something in nutrition is referred to as essential, it means that we actually can't produce that ourselves. We have to get it from elsewhere. So there are some things that we can produce in the body or we can create in the body from other foods, but the essential things are things that we just cannot make it. We have to get it from our food or the sun or that sort of thing. So these nutrients are essential because they actually drive the enzymatic processes needed for energy production, hormone balance, and also tissue repair. So pretty important mechanisms. And they also help to maintain a strong immune system and healthy digestion, as well as optimal brain function. And having a strong immune system and healthy digestion are absolutely key in regulating the levels of inflammation in your body, as well as regulating toxic load and keeping your hormones in check. So it's not just about fighting off those coughs and colds. A strong immune system really helps to regulate your body's inflammatory response. And inflammation underpins or really drives most chronic conditions and symptoms. So regulating inflammation is a very good thing when it comes to our quality of life and our overall longevity. So there are some common deficiencies that impact metabolism. Vitamin D is a massive one. We see this all the time, and you may well know that we get vitamin D from the sun. And vitamin D is key for energy production, immune health, and inflammation control. When it comes to getting enough vitamin D, part of the problem is if you're living in the northern hemisphere, then you only get vitamin D at certain times of the year, and you only are able to make vitamin D if you have bare skin, so no SPF, no clothes covering your skin, and if you're out in the sun in the peak hours of the day with your, plenty of skin exposed. And so for most of us, that's just not going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen consistently. So it can be very helpful to opt for nutrient-rich foods like salmon and milk and eggs, for example, can be good sources of vitamin D. But even so, even if you're eating loads of vitamin D-rich food, you're still not going to be able to meet your requirements. So a vitamin D supplement is very often almost critical to maintain healthy levels to help maintain your metabolism. Magnesium is another critically important nutrient. It actually supports over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including energy metabolism. And I talk about magnesium a lot because when we are stressed, we burn through magnesium rapidly. We have a really high demand for magnesium when we're stressed, but also coffee, alcohol, of course, stress, exercise. These are all things that drive up your demand for magnesium. So the problem that goes hand in hand with that is that our food is unfortunately very depleted in magnesium because the soil is very depleted in magnesium from artificial fertilizers and over farming. The nutrient levels in our foods and our produce compared to 50 to 100 years ago is barely anywhere near what the levels used to be. And so even with the best diet, it can still be very difficult to meet your nutrient requirements, but particularly with magnesium. So that is a critical one for us to optimize. Then we've got iron. Iron is also critical for oxygen transport and energy production. Now, iron is an interesting one. We have to be super careful with it because if we have too much, it can actually cause liver damage and that can be permanent. So we have to be super careful. And whilst we are having a regular menstrual cycle, we're more likely to be lacking in iron. But once your periods stop or if they become less frequent, then you're actually more likely to have too much iron. So it's always worth just checking with your doctor or doing a home finger prick blood test to check your iron levels. Don't rely too much on the ones that they do when you go to donate blood. I fell foul of that because I was donating blood regularly. I used their finger prick test to check my hemoglobin levels, and every time they told me, yep, you're fine, go ahead, and I'd donate a pint of blood. And then one day I collapsed, not while I was giving blood, just I was in a meeting, I was standing up and I just collapsed. And then what we found was that my iron levels, or my ferritin, which is my stores of iron, was on the floor. In fact, the doctor said that he didn't understand how I was still upright. It was so low. So please don't rely on the hemoglobin test that you do when you donate blood. Get your iron levels checked, get your ferritin levels checked, and see where you're at. And if you need a bit more iron, focus on iron-rich foods like liver and spinach and the leafy greens, beans, eggs, and any animal products, all really good sources of iron. And you may want to consider a supplement in the short term to top you up, but do monitor your iron levels if you supplement. And then another one is omega-3. We cannot make omega-3 in the body, so we have to get it from our food. And again, it's one where for a lot of people, it can be very much lacking in the diet. We mostly get it from oily fish, and we can get it from some plant sources as well, like flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, but it's pretty limited on the plant side of things. So again, a supplement can be really, really useful. And again, we used to get more omega-3 in the diet, partly because back in the day, I don't know when, but back in the day, livestock used to be fed a more natural diet. But now, because they're predominantly fed on grains, their fat is made up predominantly of omega-6s rather than the omega-3s that they used to be very rich in. So we now don't get as much omega-3 when we are eating animal products as we would have done before. So that also contributes to issues, because when we have too much omega-6 in the diet in relation to omega-3, that's very pro-inflammatory and it can make you very prone to inflammation. So reducing down your omega-6s by opting for better quality meat and reducing consumption of grains and seed oils and trying to increase your omega-3 intake can really help with inflammation and therefore metabolism as well. Now, I was talking before about how magnesium is so important. It's involved in so many different things going on in the body, and one of its big roles is actually converting the food that we eat into energy or burning calories and fats in the body. And it has a really big influence on other bodily functions as well, such as muscle function. And it really helps to prevent cramps. When we have enough magnesium, we're much less likely to get cramps. It also supports muscle recovery, and it's also especially important with age-related muscle loss. Magnesium is also important for nerve transmission, so it regulates our nerve signals, helping to maintain proper muscle and nervous system coordination. And it's also key in hormone regulation. It helps to balance our hormones like insulin and cortisol, which have a huge influence on our weight and our energy and our stress levels. And then magnesium, I said before that we really burn through it when we're stressed, and having a good amount of magnesium really helps us to control the release of stress hormones and reduce their impact on the body. Now, I mentioned before some things that can cause magnesium deficiency. And as I said, modern farming and depleted soil is unfortunately a big factor that we don't have a huge amount of control over. But organic foods do tend to be higher in magnesium. And then other things that we can do is think about our stress levels. We can work on managing stress. We can manage our caffeine and our alcohol intake. Both of them will actually speed up your loss of magnesium. If we are doing a lot of sweating, then we might want to increase our magnesium intake. It might be that you're sweating a lot because of hot weather, or it could be because of exercise, or it could be that you're having a lot of hot flushes and night sweats. And if you're finding that sweating is a regular thing, then we may want to up our magnesium intake. And it's also worth noting that, of course, poor dietary habits can be a real driver for lack of magnesium, particularly if we're having a lot of processed foods in the diet. So opting for whole foods is going to help you to boost that magnesium intake. So some really good sources of magnesium are things like your leafy greens, so spinach, kale, and Swiss chard. Nuts and seeds are also a great source: almonds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. Then you've got whole grains like quinoa, oats, and brown rice. And even things like dark chocolate can be a good source, and avocado and legumes. And you may have heard before, but it's a fun fact if you haven't heard it. And magnesium deficiency can actually give you cravings for chocolate. So if you find that sometimes you absolutely have to have chocolate, I've certainly been there, then it could actually be a magnesium deficiency, and you should try upping your magnesium intake to see if it helps. Now, there's a few different forms that you can get magnesium in. And when you're looking at supplements, you want to be really careful, because generally the standard supplements that are out there are in the not so ideal form. The forms that are in oxide form, then you're not going to absorb very much of that at all. And you're not going to be getting a lot of bang for your buck. And it may well give you diarrhea if you take too much of it, but also even if you take a normal amount of it, it can cause loose bowel movements because we absorb it so poorly. So instead, a good one to opt for is citrate, magnesium citrate. This is great for just general supplementation and it can aid digestion as well. I really like magnesium glycinate. This is great for improving your sleep and calming your nervous system and supporting your hormonal health. And make sure you start with a lowish dose, so 200 to 400 milligrams daily, just to avoid any potential for an upset stomach. And you can, of course, consult a professional for advice that's going to be more specific to your needs. Now, just coming back to some signs that you could be deficient in magnesium, things like fatigue or low energy levels can be a sign that you're not actually making as much energy. And remember, magnesium is really important for us to turn our food into energy. Muscle cramps and spasms, and this can often occur during exercise or even at night when you're asleep. So if you're having lots of cramps and spasms, or you find that you're very prone to cramping, then that can be a key sign. If you are very prone to irritability, anxiety, or if you have a very poor tolerance of stress, that could be linked to magnesium's calming effect on the nervous system. Insomnia or restless sleep can also be a sign of magnesium deficiency, because it really helps to regulate your melatonin and relax your body. So getting some magnesium glycinate would be a great option if you're struggling with your sleep. And also, as I mentioned, chocolate cravings, but also sugar cravings can be a sign of deficiency. It can really mess up your glucose regulation. So magnesium is crucial for maintaining your metabolic health, especially for women over 40 who are having challenges with their hormones. Now let's talk about vitamin D a little bit more. It has a really important role in regulating your insulin levels, supporting your blood sugar control, and your metabolic efficiency. It's essential for producing hormones that influence your mood, your energy, and your weight management. And it's also really key for your bone health. It helps to facilitate your calcium absorption, which is really critical for maintaining strong bones, and therefore it reduces the risk of osteoporosis, which becomes a real risk factor when your estrogen levels start to decline. So particularly once you have finished your periods and not having them anymore, your estrogen levels are going to be much, much lower than they once were. And one of the side effects of low estrogen can be bone loss. So vitamin D can really help to mitigate the loss of bone, particularly if you are having it alongside magnesium and other nutrients like vitamin K. So it is especially vital as we get older, but vital at any age. And also, low levels have been linked to the increased risk of weight gain, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, and depression. And deficiency can, of course, also impair your immune system, which leaves you more vulnerable to illness, but also more vulnerable to inflammation. Because remember, we said that the immune system helps to regulate your inflammation levels. So we really want to make sure that we are getting sunlight when we can, but making sure that we are doing that without SPF on for the first 15 minutes or so of exposure. And then we also want to make sure that we are including those nutrient-rich sources of vitamin D that I mentioned earlier. And just remember that we actually get poorer at producing vitamin D as we get older. So we may need to make a little bit more effort as time goes on. If your vitamin D levels have always been good, then don't assume that they're always going to continue to be good. Now, when it comes to supplementation of vitamin D, what's the standard recommended dose, which is about 800 international units, is really low. It's barely enough to maintain your level. If you're lacking in vitamin D, you're definitely going to need more than that. And 2,000 international units is a pretty safe dose for you to start with. And then I would make sure that you again monitor your levels, get a blood test regularly to check that your vitamin D is actually increasing if it was low to begin with, because again, some people need more than others, and there can be genetic variants that can mean that you don't absorb and store vitamin D very efficiently. So you may need a higher dose than someone else. Conversely, you may be really great at absorbing vitamin D, so you might not need such a high dose. So it's really important to test once you've been supplementing and retest so that you know how you are responding to the vitamin D that you are taking. It's also really important to be aware that your doctors may tell you that your vitamin D levels are normal, but you might only be 1 point away from being deficient. So please do look at your blood test results, request a copy of them, and look at them yourself. If your levels are under 75, then you could do with a little bit more. Really, we want to see them up at about 90, maybe even higher for some people. So don't be afraid to supplement, even if your doctor has told you that your levels are normal. Particularly if your levels are down below 50, then that's at a point when you are at an increased risk for bone loss and immune issues, and even an increased risk of cancer, because our immune system helps to go around killing cancer cells, and if our immune system is under functioning, we're at a higher risk of cancer because the immune system isn't as efficient at getting rid of them. So make sure that your vitamin D level is optimal. Now, some signs to look out for that could indicate vitamin D deficiency can again be fatigue or low energy, because vitamin D plays a really crucial role in our mitochondrial function, which is where we actually do fat burning. Muscle weakness and joint pain can be another symptom of vitamin D deficiency because of its role in calcium regulation. And low mood can be another one to look out for, particularly if you experience low mood in the winter. It can be correlated with your vitamin D levels dropping. And if you get frequent coughs and colds, that could be a sign that you are lacking vitamin D. And a chronic deficiency can link to weaker bones and increased inflammation and weight gain and hormonal imbalances. So addressing deficiency can really improve your energy levels, aid your weight loss journey and metabolic health, and boost your immune system. So listening to this episode might leave you eager to grab those supplements and embark on your journey. And that excitement is truly wonderful. But before jumping in, remember the key takeaway from our previous episode, which was episode 92. Don't guess, make sure you personalize your approach with proper testing first. Your body deserves tailored support, and understanding your unique needs is crucial for effective weight loss. To help reduce the overwhelm as you navigate your path to wellness, I encourage you to focus on small, actionable steps that lead to sustainable changes. Picture yourself feeling lighter, more energized, and in control of your choices. Every meal becomes a step towards your goals, and every day is filled with a sense of accomplishment as you embrace this journey. You don't have to do it alone. There are resources available to guide you, like my ebook, Reignite Your Metabolism, a 3-step weight loss guide for women over 40. It has a very simple approach to achieving your dream body. All the knowledge and tools mentioned in this episode are already compiled there. So grab your copy now as a guide. Use the code NOW40 for 50% off. Click the link in the show notes or head over to louisedigbynutrition.com/ebook 40. So as you set out on this transformative journey, remember that every positive change you make brings you closer to your vision of health and vitality. You've got this. And for all of you who already have the ebook, I'd love to connect with you. If you have any questions or if you need any clarification on anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram at Louise Digby Nutrition. If you've completed your personalized testing and you're seeking further assistance, we're here for you. Feel free to send us a message, and if you'd prefer a more in-depth conversation, you can easily book a call through the link in the show notes. I'm excited to support you on your journey.